Aloha, I'm Lyla Berg. Mahalo for tuning in to Island Focus. We're broadcasting this program remotely from my home again as Hawaii reopens slowly after COVID-19, so you can continue to meet the people who influence our daily lives. Thank you for tuning in. With us today on Island Focus, I have the pleasure of talking with Hawaii Island Mayor Harry Kim. Nice to see you again, Harry.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You know, the Big Island has gone through a lot of changes over the years, and particularly now with this COVID-19. You've met the challenges head on. Can you share with us a little bit what you envision in the future as we are reopening Hawaii?
Thank you for the most difficult of questions. Really a very important one, because I think obviously this has been a very difficult thing for the state of Hawaii, but especially for places of the world that we live in. And we can learn so much from what's going on. Number one, the reality that things like the pandemic is a reality. Most people don't even understand that before this. In regards to that, I think it should wake us up to a lot of things in regards to what we have here and what we want to go forward. The most important question, I think, is for us to ask what we have learned and what do we want as our lifestyle for tomorrow. And that's a simple question, but a very, very difficult one. We knew, for example, that immediately almost all, and it turned out to be true, all of the visitors from Japan, for example, which accounted for 20, 30, 40%, depends on what you count, of our economy, was going to stop overnight. And obviously it did, because the rule was if you come to Hawaii from anywhere, you will be in quarantine for 14 days. And we all knew that the average Japanese visitor was here less than 7. So common sense prevailed. They're not coming. That's what happens when you have a tourist-based industry. And this is not to put down that industry because of the importance of it. But we have to realize, what we should do, and we should diversify a little more. And I think of Hawaii Island, of all the islands, we're the luckiest because we depended on tourism a lot, but we still had a lot of room to grow. And I think we're going to take that opportunity to see how we can grow from that this experience we're going through now.
You've been very deliberate in keeping people together on the Big Island. And in fact, your slogan from out of your office of "We're in this together" really gives us a sense of what your values are. And when you talk about developing the Big Island or growing the Big Island, I suspect it has something to do with agriculture as well and local businesses.
Yeah, I'll get philosophical because from the very beginning, back in 2000, I remember when I first ran a reporter asked me, what are your goals, what's your vision? And I didn't go that far, except I'm being asked, so you answer. And I found myself saying, my goal is very simple, and it is to make Hawaii a nice place to live. And if you make Hawaii a nice place to live, it will definitely be a nice place to do business. If you do 1 and 2, then it will be a nice place to visit. And as simple as that may sound, if you turn around that statement, I feel, rightfully or wrong, that we did a lot of things for this place we call home to make it a nice place to visit first. And I think we forgot the most important thing was create a place to make it a nice place to live. And I think that's why you see Maui, Kauai, and Oʻahu, the cost of living, the price of property, et cetera, et cetera. And I did not want that for the island of Hawaii. Naturally, I do want it a nice place to visit, but above all, number one, focus on a nice place to live. And that's the theme of working here from that day.
What are one of the lessons that you have learned through this COVID-19 situation that we can all learn from too and take into the future?
You have to back up and really look at the impact of what you're doing. And it takes, a person to really back up to look at the whole picture. And I think if we all looked at back in 1970, when Governor Oriyoshi called people together to say, Burns rather, what's the future of Hawaii? Decisions was made in regards to tourism. But I think one of the most important things we all forgot is the lifestyle of Hawaii. And I've always want to remember that for one purpose, a reason only. God, we are so lucky to live here. We are so lucky to be the cosmopolitan people without taking some time. Look what's happening to the mainland. I never thought to this day that we would be talking about racism and those things that of what is happening throughout the world, but especially now. Hawaii had a word called cosmopolitan, people of the world. And I swear, I fell in love with that as a young boy. And we forgot about it because I'm sure a lot of listeners going to say, what is he talking about? Well, take your time and look it up. Go look at the Manoa campus, a beauty contest every year. Miss Kapalapala, before 1960, you had a Miss Cosmopolitan category, meaning people that belong to the world. You had to be a mixed ethnic group to be that. We were so blessed to grow up like that. And all to do is step back 1 second and look at what that is, what we had of people. I don't care what you have. If you don't have that good relationship of a community of people, what have we got? We really have nothing. And we had that, and I didn't want to lose that. I do everything as the people work with me, know that that's what we work towards.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your philosophy and your heart, and also the vision that you have for us to remember who we are in Hawaii. Thank you, Mary Kim.
Thank you for giving me a chance to say that. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me in my conversation with Harry Kim, who is the mayor of Hawaii Island. Aloha. I'm here today on Island Focus with Kirk Caldwell, who is the mayor of the city and county of Honolulu. Thank you for being with us, Kirk.
I want to thank you for allowing us to spend some time together on Island Focus. And it's good to be together with you, Lyla, although we're not in the same room. We may be physically apart, but socially close. And, we share as an experience of working together in the House of Representatives. So it's nice to be talking with you and your audience. Thank you so much for making the time to allow this to happen.
Well, you've just given the perfect opening that we are physically distant but socially connected. And perhaps you can share with us a little bit of what you envisioned for the future of Oʻahu as we reopen and as we move past COVID-19.
I do look back at the sacrifices that have been made by the people of the city and county of Honolulu, almost 1 million strong. I mean, incredible sacrifice that's been made since probably starting in February. Huge impacts for families in terms of not being together, for their worries and concerns and fears, for the impacts on businesses, and then the massive job losses. When you think about the number of people unemployed, Oʻahu right now has 22% unemployment, the highest of any city in the country. And before the pandemic, we were at like 2.1, 2.2, the lowest of any city in the country. We just announced the next phase of businesses will open up on June 19th, and it pretty much covers almost every sector now, except for large outdoor gatherings, sporting events, entertainment events, those kinds of things. But because of the sacrifice, because of what's occurred, it's my hope, my dream, and I think it's probably that of many people on this island, that we don't go back to the place where we started. There are good things about where we were, but there are also things that we'd like to change. For example, in the visitor industry, is the goal to go back to 10 million visitors and then 11 and 12 and on, and see the impacts that brings with it, but not see the type of benefit that we used to see with lower numbers of tourists. And so this is just one example of many where maybe we grow in a more resilient way, and when we're finished, we're not back to the status quo. We're in a different position, but a much healthier position, and how we maybe live in a way where our youth, our children, our daughter, your son, have a more resilient and more positive future, where they say, this is a place I can live. Because as you've heard recently, Carl Bottom, from UHERO, they've all reported that in the next year or two, we could lose 25,000 people. That breaks my heart, and I'm sure it breaks your heart. We'd much rather see a place that's more affordable, where there's a job opportunity for our ohana, our children who are born and raised here. We can create green jobs, Lyla, that don't exist today, whether it's getting people to plant more trees on our island, getting people to put more solar panels on roofs, but help do that by hiring people who are unemployed. And perhaps, as visitors come back, it's managed in a better way. Maybe we don't have as many vacation rentals where people in our neighborhoods, they're in designated resort areas. And when they travel, they're traveling in a way that shows greater respect for our community, and also maybe minimize the impacts. We manage better where visitors go and how many people are in any one place at any given time. And a small example of that we're looking at is for Hanauma Bay, which right now still remains closed. But as we open up, maybe we don't open up to 3,000 visitors again, where they're down there lying on the sand getting a suntan, but we're actually inviting groups to come down in a smaller number, and they're being taken on a guided tour where they're being told about the reef, they're being told about the fish, they're being given the native Hawaiian names for those fish and what the importance of those fish were to the community back then, and they grow to appreciate the uniqueness of this bay. That's why I haven't opened it up. We're hoping that perhaps we can do that as a small example of what we can do when more visitors come to our shores.
As we wrap up our conversation for today, what are some of the lessons you've learned that perhaps we can also learn from you?
One thing that I've learned is I think the people of this place are extraordinary. When orders were issued, whether it be by me or the governor, they were complied with in ways you didn't see anywhere else in our country. I mean, the fact that we have so few cases is a tribute not to what government did, but what the people of this island did in terms of complying and protecting each other. And, we use the word ohana and kuleana, but it's not just words. It's not just a Disney movie. It's for real here. People act out of concern and consideration for their immediate family, their neighbors, their employees, and the larger community in ways you don't see anywhere else. And so that's one lesson learned, is that part of our culture is still alive and strong. And we need to be appreciative of it and make sure that we protect it for generations to come, which is the next lesson is, how do we do it in a way? How do we get people reemployed? But as we do it, we're laying the foundation for a new direction. And I think you can do that. It's like any journey. The first step you take is setting you in a certain direction. And it depends on that first step, because it's critical as to where you want to go. And so as we start, like you're saying, it's not a rush, but we do want people to get back to work. But what kind of work? What kind of jobs? Where you have the greatest synergy to help people in the short term. But as we do it, we're going in a new direction for the long term. And that's the goal. And I think we can get there.
Well, thank you so much. The Mayor Kim on the Hawaii island, his quote is, "We're in this together." And I hear that from you as well.
Thank you for your public service, too.
Thank you very much. You've just had the opportunity to join me in conversing with Kirk Caldwell, who is the mayor of the city and county of Honolulu. Mahalo. Today on Island Focus, you will enjoy meeting Derek Kawakami, who is the mayor of Kauai. Thank you for being with us, Derek.
Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure.
Now, as we're moving through the reopening, what are some of the challenges and opportunities that you see? And maybe you could share a little bit about your vision for what's next on Kauai.
This phase of our operation, the reopening and the stabilization of our economy, is much more complicated than the first phase, when we basically just had to build a protective bunker for our people, and just that part was relatively simple. Moving forward, we're much more coordinated, I would say, with the state, as well as with the other counties. Of course, we're working off of different timelines because Kauai was able to stabilize our situation a lot earlier. But now we take a risk assessment of various industries, and you've heard Governor Ige's plan to drop the mandatory 14-day quarantine for inter-island travel to reestablish a local travel industry. And the next phase is the reopening of our visitor industry as a whole. I think the important takeaway of all of this, Lyla, is to always document what worked and what didn't work, because this is a brand new operation. The last time we saw a pandemic such as this was during the Spanish flu, in 1919. So it's very important that we document what worked and what didn't work, because we don't want to be caught in this type of situation again. I think the next big thing is also to really take a look at to where we want to end up. Sometimes as leaders, we can get so entrenched on the front line, because that is essentially where we need to be, that we forget to disengage and take a step back so we can take a look at our peripheral vision as to where we ultimately want to end up. And there is no better time than during a disaster to be able to really make those big changes that oftentimes are hard to make, whether it be a lack of political will or the tremendous amounts of pressure. But we were able to do that during the flooding event of 2018. That is when, in the midst of a disaster, we were able to take a look and ask ourselves, when we get back to a new normal, what do we want this area to be? What kind of jobs would we like to see established? How do we want to see our visitors view some of our crown jewels on Kauai? And how can we have a vibrant visitor industry without the further erosion of the quality of life for everyday working men and women?
What are your real concerns about for the young people?
I would like to create a Kauai where our young people can reestablish hope. That's one thing that I have seen through the changing times. When I was growing up, which wasn't that long ago, in fact, I'm still growing up, we had hope. We believed that if we get a college education, we can come back home and we can make a living, and we can have a happy marriage, and we can raise kids, and our kids can stay here and our grandkids can stay here. But as we move along, I've seen more of our young folks start off with these wonderful dreams when I talk to those kindergarteners. And when I start talking to kids in middle school and high school, I see that hope and dream slowly start to fade. And my dream is to have a Kauai where we have a vibrant economy, where we have a diverse number of jobs for our kids to come back home to, that can pay that living wage that we talk about, where we can not put all of our eggs in one basket and really have a multitude of options as far as housing, as far as job opportunities. And this is the time to really refocus our vision and start implementing those changes that we want to see. And it's not easy. It takes a collective effort. But to return to business as usual would be a bigger catastrophe in my eyes.
What are the lessons that you've learned that you could leave us with so we can also learn it?
If you keep your life simple, meaning oftentimes we feel that life is very complicated. Sometimes we feel that we have these insurmountable challenges. When you stand at the base of a mountain and you look up and you're asking yourself, how in the world am I supposed to get over this mountain? It just reminds me of my mom always telling me, hey, just make that mountain small. I don't want you looking at the top. I just want you to get up 10 feet and then get up another 10 feet. And that's the biggest thing I learned, is that my priorities are really quite small. It's to serve our community, to be a good husband, to be a great dad, to be a good friend, understand that I'm not perfect, but ultimately we should be comfortable in our own skin. I know it's probably not what most people expect to hear, but internally, I feel that this situation will just make me a better person. It's made me appreciate the hardworking men and women in both the public sector and the private sector that are willing to be courageous in the face of adversity and step up and continue to serve their community. I cannot say how proud I am of our workers here in our EOC and our county workers that have this, just woken up, showed up to work like business as usual, and understanding that there is a level of fear and uncertainty, but they found it within themselves to continue to serve and do their job.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us and for reminding us who we are. I've learned a lot from you today, and I'm sure we all will continue to learn a lot from you. Thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you.
You've just had an opportunity to get to know a little better the mayor of Kauai County, Derek Kawakami. Glad you could be with us. Mahalo for tuning in to Island Focus and joining me in meeting Maui Mayor Mike Victorino.
Mahalo for inviting. I am truly honored.
You've had a lot going on Maui over the last few years. And so now as we move through this COVID-19 situation, maybe share with us what some of the opportunities are and what do you envision for Maui that's possible?
Well, as you can recall, last year we had fires all over this county, over almost 26,000 acres burnt. And we were so fortunate and so blessed to not have any major structures or any injuries during that big fire season we had last year. So this year came around and we were looking much better. And then COVID-19 came and made everything stop. To maybe it's a reset, a time to restock and rethink how we do our visitor industry. For Maui, we need to look at diversification. I think all of us mayors have said the same thing over and over. We started about 2 months ago with food distribution because we saw the need there. And we have handed out well over 8,000 bags of food, more than 500,000 pounds of food from our side, and along the other community groups, over 1.5 million pounds of food has been given out over the last 2 months to the needy, the unemployed. We had our help program, which provides funding for our needy unemployed, helping them with their car payments, their rent, their utility bills, food, whatever else they may need as important. Our Chamber Micro Loan Program, which helps small businesses with 10 or less employees with less than $750,000 in revenue, which SBA and others did not have programs that they qualify to help them sustain and to continue to grow and survive this pandemic. But the point we try to get is our nonprofits, as well as our small businesses, are the backbone, and we continue to help them and our residents throughout this dire need.
There's some hope that we'll just go back to how things were to some degree. I don't think we'll ever go back. And my sense about Maui is you're always going forward.
I've been blessed. Our forefathers really put a path in place so that this island converted over from agricultural to the hospitality industry and stayed strong. Now we need to do the same thing with the hospitality industry still being the strongest pillar of our economic engine, with the aspect that we need to add other legs to this stool that will help us during these downturns, and they will come again.
What are some of the lessons learned relative to resiliency that you can share with us so we can learn from you?
I would share the same thing. I think all of us say this very similar. Resiliency is when you can live here, work here, and raise your family here. That's sustainability. That's when you know you're prepared for the future. The jobs that have been lost through this pandemic, some will not come back. So we have to be prepared to change and to make sure we get our workforce equipped for whatever the new job models, the new normal jobs, if you want to use that term, that become available. So that's government and the private sector's responsibility. Our first priority was our Kama'aina economy. getting our restaurants and retail and others open, all the services. Man, I can tell you, I was the biggest hero in town when I opened up beauty shops and barber shops and salons, man. In my household, my wife and all the women in our household thought I was a great hero. And I believe a lot of women out there thought the same thing. This is going to be what we have to remember as part of our new norm, the mask. That's going to be with us probably forever. But I always remind people, when 9/11 happened, remember the first 2 or 3 years of travel, it was helter-skelter. It was crazy, right? We all had all kinds of, you can't take this, you can't take that, you got to do this, you can't do that. Well, now, when you go to the airport, you pretty much know what you need to do. Now, when it comes to travel, now we're going to have to look at when people come, we need to check them out to make sure they're healthy, that they're not going to bring in the COVID or any other disease from the outside.
And my sense about you too, Mike, is that you will continue to help even as we move out of this COVID-19 situation.
Absolutely. And some of the CARES money that we're getting from the feds will be utilized in just the areas I've spoken of and other development, helping our homeless. We have a Ōahu village where we put 23 tiny homes so that people can get off the beaches or get off the streets. And now they're taking advantage of that. There's so much that can and shall and will be done. I'm excited about the future holds for Maui County.
Well, thank you so much for these few minutes of energy and positivity. And you've given us a lot of hope. And we know that Maui's in good hands with you. So thank you for taking your time with us.
Well, mahalo to you and really to all of the people out there, not only just to Maui County, but throughout the state of Hawaii. Remember, love your family, spend time. That's something else that's been taught to us now. You had to stay at home, so you spend time. And I think this is something we lost. Now is the time to not only recalibrate and readjust our economic system, our whole social system. We have depended on this too much in our lives. Now we need to move it. Our hugs and kisses, until we get COVID-19 out of the way, maybe not so much, but spending time together as a family, because you never get a second chance. Enjoy. God bless you all. Aloha and mahalo.
You've just had the opportunity to share the energy and the thoughts and the hope of Maui Mayor Mike Victorino. Mahalo for joining us. Mahalo for being with us today on Island Focus as we navigate our way through the pandemic that has changed life as we knew it. I'm Lyla Berg. On behalf of the crew of Island Focus, as well as the committed volunteers and staff at Ōlelo Community Media, aloha and malama pono. Take care of yourselves and be kind to one another. See you soon.